Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing Frankie J in the 5-minute pool on ICC. All right, this is my buddy, National Master Frank Johnson. He's a guy who lives here in Minnesota. He says hello in the chat. I'm going to try to say something. Hard to reach my keyboard. All right, so Frankie lives way up in northern Minnesota, right by the Canadian border. I know it's very cold where he's at right now, so hope you're staying warm, Frankie. And it's been a while since we played. We used to play as kids a decent amount, and I'm going to play I don't know what I'm going to play. We'll see what happens coming up. I might play a Breyer Variation, because I think Frankie goes into the main lines of the Ruy Lopez, so I expect some mainline stuff out of him. Yeah, let's go knight b8, and we'll angle for knight d7. In fact, I think I saw a game that he played against Christoph recently. He appeared in one of Christoph's videos, and they also played this opening. So he has some recent experience in this line. Okay, let's go rook e8, and we're going to put the bishop on f8. Start maneuvering a bit. Yeah, we'll play g6. Useful to keep the knight out of f5. Seems like everyone is playing the Breyer these days. It's a really reliable opening. Okay, let's play c5. And if d5, you want to go c4 and try to gain the c5 square for the knight. So if they play bishop here, I have some recent experience in this line, so I think you want to play this right away versus h6. Because if you play h6, the bishop comes back to e3, and if then you play knight c5, bishop takes c5 is promising based on a game of Giri's. I think Giri versus Karyakin, where Giri played the white side of that position in impeccable fashion. I recently had this at this tournament that I played in Texas, the UTRGV Invitational Tournament, and I was black against Daniel Gurovich, who's a talented young IM from Georgia, the state, not the country. And yeah, we had this exact same line. Okay, queen here, and I think black wants to go bishop e7, and thereby free up the defense of f6. So if rook takes a1, now my queen can actually take. It's kind of nice. At some stage, white can always try to push the h-pawn and inconvenience black on the king side. But I believe this, where the trade has already been made down the a file, is already pretty good for black. I don't mind my position here at all. All right, so knight fd7, probably. Yeah, let's do that. So ensuring that if white takes, we can recapture with our knight. All right, and they're going to try to go for knight g4. For that reason, I might play h5 here. It's a good way to keep them out of that square. And I think it's all right to do this, even though I do weaken the king side slightly. I think it's worth it to ensure that this knight never makes an appearance on that square. I'll just have to watch various sacrificial ideas, right? Like knight takes h5, for instance. I might go pawn h4 at some stage to kick this knight. That's not out of the question. In the short term, though, I'll probably be looking to move my queen. So maybe queen c7 and try to trade some stuff down the file. Yeah, so I think queen here is totally fine now. And look to swap the rooks and eventually take over the file, if possible. Here, probably bishop f8. I don't think I want to trade the dark square bishops. So let's just do this for now. If he plays bishop h6, bishop e7, bishop g5, then I'll have to make a decision that might be kind of annoying, but he's going to go for something a little more active. Maybe he has eyes on sacrificing here sometime soon. Possible, although, so if I trade on a1, let's do that first of all, because I think rook a8 could always be played. Maybe knight b6, and then the bishop coming to c8 could be a defensive resource. Yeah, let's go here. I don't think the a file really matters much right now, so preparing bishop c8 and also maybe being able to play bishop e7 if necessary could be a lot more helpful than playing like rook a8 and just swapping everything. So we're going to go with this plan and see how it works out. Yeah, the Breyer produces like a ton of maneuvering type games. This move I can rebuff, right, if I want, with the knight coming back here. If I want to. And he's kind of thinking of bringing his queen in, I think, but maybe I should just go here just to see what he does. Yeah, I think that's the proper knight to use. He can take on h5, though, can't he? I missed knight takes h5. That produces kind of a weird position, though. King h7? Maybe king h7. I did not see that he could do this, but I wonder if this is actually working in white's favor or not. He can play queen e2, though. Queen e2 and defend the knight. And then if I take, queen takes... Yeah, king g8, that's not so good. My king is too open. Yeah, knight takes h5 was a nice resource by him. So if queen e2, maybe bishop h6. What in the world is going on there? Whoa, he's coming in with the other knights. Other knight makes an appearance. So if I take, what are you doing? So if take, probably queen here. And then there might be a threat on f5. There's definitely a threat on f5. So that could be tricky to deal with. I'm really not sure what's going on at this stage. I mean, I think I've probably just blundered, but it's still not incredibly clear. Bishop g7 is a threat, isn't it? That's what he wants to do. Okay, I think I'm going to take, and then after queen here, play bishop h6 and give this pawn and see how this plays out. Yeah, I think I need this as a defensive resource. So he can play queen g4, and he basically has a draw if he wants it. King h7, queen f5, etc. But he also might go for something more aggressive here. I definitely wouldn't fault him for that. He can't introduce this bishop into the equation, though. So, I don't know. He might just take a draw. If he does something other than queen f5 here, I might go rook g8 and put the rook on g6. Don't think his rook is going to... Like, rook a7 really doesn't do much. Yeah, given the time situation, I have a feeling he's going to go for the draw. The only other plan I can really think of for him is check, king g8, rook e1, rook g3, or rook e1, rook e3, and come over here. But even my bishop controls that e3 square, so... Wow, he's going to go for it. He's going to gamble. Okay. Gambling it is. Okay, let's go bishop here. I mean, we kind of both have to hurry now. He still has a draw if he wants it. With the check. I was thinking about king f8 there. I don't know if I want to risk it. King f8 and queen f5 back. Nah, I think with my king position, that would be like really risky to play. Yeah. Draw by repetition. Okay. Yeah, I feel like if I play king f8 here at the end, then queen f5, and he's threatening to come here. I guess I could play king g8 then, but I really dislike my coordination. Okay, so let's take a look at that one. I did miss knight takes h5. That was a nice resource that I overlooked, because I thought bishop f6, knight b to d7. He would just be forced to move this bishop back, and we would have a repetition But yeah, knight takes h5 was an issue. Let's take a look. So yeah, the Breyer variation is a fun line to study. You can get very deep into the middle game in your preparation with this, because some of the main lines of the Breyer like don't happen until like moves like 17, 18, stuff like that. So yeah, here on move number 9, black has several options. Knight a5, bishop b7, the move I played, knight b8. There's minor lines too, like knight d7, h6 is playable too. So the point of this is that in the Ruy Lopez, the black knight often does not stand very well on c6. So by playing knight b8, you strive to free up the c-pawn and achieve this kind of harmonious development. Knight on d7 and bishop on b7, unimpeded, attacking e4. So this all happens. I put the bishop here. And then white wants to carry out this maneuver, knight f1 to g3. So they need to put their bishop on c2 to achieve that, because otherwise e4 is too weak. So this is all standard maneuvering stuff. Yeah, a4. And a good rule for black in the Breyer is that when white plays a4, that's a good time for black to respond with c5. And you create this pawn wedge. And now for black, playing c4 followed by knight c5 is one of the principal ways of securing your self-counterplay. You need space on the queen side. White already has a space edge in the center, and the king side is often white's domain as well. So black needs to counteract that by playing a bit on the queen side. So bishop g5, and then knight c5. Yeah, here, as I was mentioning, a lot of people play h6, and up till a few years ago, I think h6 was considered the way to go. But after bishop e3, if black plays the immediate knight at c5, then I think this position is kind of unpleasant for black. And I know Bologan in his recent book on the Breyer says the same thing. He says black should avoid this. Black could play queen c7 here in preparation for knight c5 so that we could take with the queen. But I think there is a certain value in keeping the pawn back on h7 and not putting it on h6 quite yet. And as I said, I had previously played this against Daniel Gurevich. So take here. The game against Gurevich, how did it go? I think he played queen d2 right here. I think it went like that. And then I played bishop e7, and then he doubled up the rooks, I'm fairly certain. I think it was like this. But now I'm struggling to remember, because I also was able to play knight here. But yeah, there was a doubling of the rooks in that game. So after knight c5, a takes b5, a takes b5, queen d2, and now bishop e7. Standard way for black to be able to play queen here, because right now I can't do that. I would just drop the knight if I did. So let me add the engine. Yeah, bishop e7. Now bishop came back here. And again, I don't want white to take when I have to take with a pawn, so I played knight fd7. And now they went here looking for knight g4. Therefore, I played h5, trying to stop that plan. And then the knight came back to f3. Yeah, possibly here I underestimated this whole bishop to g5 plan when white puts the bishop back on the king side, kind of showing that he's not committed to just keeping the bishop on this e3 square. So bishop f6 is the engine suggestion here. Maybe looking for queen e7 to connect the rooks. Yeah. There doesn't look to be any particular danger. Keeping the bishop here is nice because I do stop like knight h4, and white will think twice about using the g5 square. So instead I did this. Now bishop g5. Now went back here. Maybe just knight b6 is also fine. I mean, if there's a trade that occurs, this should be defensible. Yeah, queen h6 I don't think is ever that big of a deal. I could even play queen f8 if I really wanted to offer a trade. Try to eject this queen. But, okay, bishop f8 is fine. And then here, and we swapped. Now I played knight here, but yes, that appears to be a pretty big blunder. Wow, that evaluation rockets up in white's favor. +2 now, after knight takes h5. Okay. That's interesting, because knight takes h5 was not played in the game, right? He played bishop f6 first, and then knight takes h5. Okay, so maybe he had this resource for 2 moves in a row. So already this can be played. And then if I take bishop f6, and it's a similar problem. Queen g5 is coming, and the h5 pawn will be munched. And this is much worse compared to the game. I don't have nearly as many resources in the vicinity of my king. Yeah, this is just losing. So I got to keep the knight here then to stop the bishop from coming to f6. The engine wants to go bishop c8. This looks very passive, but that's like standard fare for the Breyer variation. Again, white's control of the a file is negligible right now. They don't even have anywhere they can infiltrate other than a8, but I could always play knight b6 then if I wanted to. So, yeah, this is just a big error, knight b6. Maybe bishop g7 is also okay. Although that does encourage stuff like what the computer is saying, knight hf5. And white might make a sacrifice, even if it means only getting one pawn for the piece, because they can probably bank on winning the h5 pawn. And my bishop is terrible on g7 now. It's kind of being held hostage by that white knight. So this could be dangerous too. Yeah, on the whole, I think I dislike my decision to play bishop f8 right here. I think I should have just played knight b6 and been okay with the trade of the dark square bishops. I was trying to avoid that dark square bishop trade, but it cost me, especially when I played this move. So he played here, and I went back, and this is now a nifty resource. So yeah, if I take, queen g5 is really going to hurt. In fact, that's just mate in a couple moves, isn't it? Come here, and then queen h8, checkmate. So I cannot take the knight when they've sacrificed it. Also, I can't take on f6 because they do this, and fork on the king and the rook. So I played king h7. I was thinking, let's try to go bishop to h6. And now he played knight f5. Yeah, impressively energetic play by Mr. Frankie. So knight f5 turns the screws and offers me a difficult choice, whether to take the knight or not. I eventually did, although I had some misgivings about doing this. The engine wants to play g takes, but isn't that terrible after queen g5? Wait, is that what it said? Yeah, g takes h5, right? Oh, it wants to go bishop h4, not queen g5. Bishop h4, really? So in preparation for queen g5, when I can't take on f6 with the knight now? That must be the reason. So white can sacrifice a piece and play a kind of a slow move like bishop h4, and they still have a strong attack. That's a little alarming. I mean, I do have a lot of pieces bunched up on the queen side, so it makes sense that white might be able to just brute force go for our king. Yeah, I think of the two knights, I feel much more comfortable taking this one compared to that one, because I feel like if I put a pawn here, it's just dead meat for the white queen. Yeah, I mean, if this, I suppose I can hang on after this. Queen takes, bishop c8, and it's not so bad. But that bishop h4 move is nice. Just preparing queen g5, and black is pretty helpless. As played, though, I took here, and then the queen came in. And I don't think I really have time to take here. I don't want the extra pawn, and white also has queen f5 check, but probably even more. Yeah, bishop g7 is a big problem. If I take it, I get checkmated. And in the meantime, white is threatening queen h6, queen h8. Yeah, mate in 7 according to the computer. So bishop h6 is mandatory after queen g5. And then white grabs the pawn. King g8 forced. Check again. I went here. Oh, that's interesting. King f8 is my only move. I just assumed king f8 was losing in view of this move, but I guess I can snake out. I guess if this, then here. Even this is bad for black. Knight coming into f5. My king's going to have to go for a walk, and I'll probably lose f7, and at that point, white would have 3 pawns for the piece. So even this is bad. Yeah, I kind of glossed over king f8. I just assumed that this move would lose. But maybe it's a little more complicated than that. Queen h4. Why queen h4? What is the threat? I don't get it. Let's just say I play here. Knight g3. Go back and attack the bishop. And then if here, probably take, and then the knight comes in. You can see that the knight and the queen cause all sorts of problems in the vicinity of my king. That's why the queen and the knight are such a potent attacking combination. So this move apparently loses because of bishop to g7. Not a move I thought of, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Again, the bishop is untouchable because of mate. So, yeah, a simple threat for white here is just to take. And if king takes, queen g7, king takes here, bishop d1, soon that will be checkmate. Yeah. So bishop h6, or bishop g7 rather, attacking the bishop on h6 would basically force me to resign. What if I play the bishop away somewhere? Let's just see how white manhandles me. Bishop f8. So the bishop continues in here. Yeah, that's also a threat if this bishop leaves the defense of g7. Brutal. You can see white's attack gaining momentum. But he checked a little bit and then decided to play on with bishop h4. Probably the correct decision. I thought he might not do that in view of the time, but as we can see, black still has a lot of difficulties here. And then it looks like I played a good move, bishop c8. I mean, I wanted some other piece like pointing at the king side to help out, and I need my knight on d7 to guard f6. So I thought the bishop coming here would be a reasonable move. I'm still apparently losing. Okay, now the computer thinks rook h8 is a better try. Maybe so that after this check, I can gain the use of the e8 square to try to slip away. It still looks pretty sketchy for black, but desperate times. But I played bishop c8, and then we agreed on the perpetual here. Yeah, I think if white had more time, he might have been able to come up with something. Rook e1 is the top move. I mentioned that move during the game, but I didn't think it really did much because this square is covered by the bishop. But it might be the case that I can't really afford to part with that bishop. Moreover, it's just hard to find a move here because I can't ever move this knight due to the check. I mean, in that way, you could say that bishop c8 didn't help me that much. Even though it looked correct, pointing the bishop at the queen. Rook e1. Well, let's just see how their attack unfolds. Like, say I just play something random. Rook e3. Okay, so threatening to swing the rook over. So let's say I take. Yeah, check, and then they get into g7 with mate. So that rook lift idea could have been the missing ingredient that white needed to truly gain victory in this game. Very hard to see, though, with less than 30 seconds on your clock. So as played, we just went for a draw. I thought for a second about king f8, but I had a very bad feeling about it. In fact, it looks like the better move, though. I thought after queen f5, I would have to go back to g8 anyways, because it seemed like this invasion is working. So yeah, king g8, best move for black. All right, so complicated game. It took a little while to analyze those attacking subtleties, and I know there was some stuff that I probably glossed over, but it's sufficient to say that black's position is very bad after knight takes h5 and probably just losing. So knight b to d7 was a blunder. And had I avoided that move, I think black has a reasonable game. Yeah, right here. If I do something like bishop g7, although that does invite knight f5, maybe on the previous move, or right here after bishop g5, maybe knight b6 is better timed now. I think black's doing all right. But if you play the Breyer, you got to be heads up for kingside attacks that white can throw at you, as this game illustrates. So thank you for the game, Frankie. Hope you guys enjoyed it as well. And I'll be back again soon with another video. Talk to you guys later. Bye.